Hey everybody, welcome to the Digital Third. I'm your host Josh Lowe, and on today's episode we are going to talk about branding with Jessica Strelioff. Why is it important? Well, if you want to gain clarity on your strengths, values, and passions that make your brand unique, this episode is for you. It's for the Jessica fans who want to know more about her process, and this is going to be valuable if you are interested in communicating your brand message authentically and effectively. So, all right. So today I have co-hosting with me Melissa Mendez, our friend, and she's the founder of Eureka and Flow Party. And she is going to be bringing some life to the stream. And so the agenda for today is we're going to have a half-hour coffee chat with Jessica, and then we're going to do a little bit of a show and tell. She's going to walk us through like her branding process of crafting brand identities, and then a Q&A. So if you have a lot of questions on branding, make sure you add it in the chat, and then we will follow up with that. So, okay, so without further ado, let's welcome everyone else. Woohoo! Hey Jess. Hey Melissa.
Hey Josh. Great to be here.
Woo! Wow. Lively crowd.
So many people.
Yes. Well, I want to say hi to the crowd. Melissa, you wanna welcome them?
Yeah, we have Rahul here, Tom, Dale, Maggie. Maggie's back from vacation, so welcome back, Maggie.
Nice.
Eric, hi everybody. So happy to have you here.
Awesome,
Hi,
fantastic. All right, Jess, I'm so glad to have you on the stream. Super honored. I know you are also going to be part of the design gym. You'll be teaching one of the sessions on branding. So for those of you who don't know you, maybe you can share a little bit of who you are, where you're streaming from, and like what you do. Let's start with that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Josh. I love being here. Great to talk with you and share a little about branding. I'm Jessica Strelioff. I'm a brand designer and creative director and co-founder of Good Side Studio. I'm based in very warm and sunny Austin, Texas right now. And I am at my home. I work from home. So I'm streaming live from my home studio.
Okay, right on. So I want to get into your whole workflow. Oh, maybe, you know what? I'd love to share a little bit of your work. So I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, sure.
All right. So this is you doing a live stream with Adobe. This is about what, 4 or 5 months ago? 5 months ago?
Yes. Yeah. Back in March, I believe. That was really fun. Got to live stream a boutique hotel brand.
Yeah.
So
that was really
from
cool.
Start to finish. Yeah, that was a great experience. Adobe Live is such an awesome resource for anyone that hasn't checked it out. Like, there's so many great creatives streaming live there and walking through their process.
Yeah, that's really awesome. This is your website. I love it. Let me just refresh this. This is Good Side Studio. Maybe you can share a little bit about what you guys do, what kind of clients you take on. It's just like the work here. This video is like fire.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so Good Side was started by me and my co-founder, Danielle. And so Danielle leads all things verbal. I lead all things visual. So Danielle is a brand strategist and copywriter hybrid. And then I'll do obviously the hands-on design work and creative direction or art direction as needed for clients. So Danielle and I met on the agency side like 7 years ago. We both have a background working in-house in tech in San Francisco. We met on the agency side. Then we both freelanced for a long time together, but independently. And then earlier this year, we started Good Side in April. So it's new-ish as a studio, but the work and the way we work has been happening for years and years. Our clients are normally early stage companies, typically companies that either, just started or raising a Series A.
Okay.
We have a lot of tech clients just because of our network, but we do a lot of consumer goods, consumer companies, consumer tech, and also lately we're getting a lot more into healthcare, sustainability companies, climate companies. So that's really our our sort of like heart spot.
This
Um,
is
I have a
so
question.
nice. Go ahead,
So,
yeah.
Melissa.
why did you decide to go from freelance to partnering with your friend?
Yeah. So great question. So Danielle and I, when we met on the agency side of things, we really love to collaborate closely together. So, she does all things brand positioning. So she would like start off with brand positioning. And then we noticed traditionally at like most agencies or at most companies, there's like a handoff. You just like throw over the brand positioning over the wall to the designer, and the designer takes it. And then you throw the designs over to a copywriter, and the copywriter takes it. And it's not like super collaborative always. It's kind of like a handoff process that didn't feel like really integrated. It didn't create the most whole person brands, we like to call them.
Mm,
And so we really found our own way of working and collaborating and shaping brands together, where it's really this back and forth between the visual and verbal and strategic side of branding. So there's this sort of more organic, natural flow of brand building. We
Mhm.
loved that. We love that way of working. I basically said that I'm never going to design a brand identity without a strategic foundation anymore. And Danielle is
mm,
just
Right.
the best
Yes.
brand strategist to work with. I used to do it all myself. So when I first started freelancing, Danielle was still at the agency. I was trying to do the brand positioning and the design all by myself. And I got burned out. Like I was just like, I can't, this is too much for one person to do. And I knew that I ultimately wanted to partner with Danielle long term. So waited for her to leave and convinced her to start freelancing with me, and then started Good Side. But yeah, I mean, I also knew that I never wanted to be a solo business owner. I just really love working with other people. And I think the best brands are made with more people, more creatives. We always like to bring in other creatives if we can to the brand building process, whether that's an animator or an illustrator or a photographer. It just
Mhm.
makes for more rich brands.
Yeah. So, Josh, can I kick off the branding?
yeah.
Because I have questions. I'm
Let's do it.
like,
Let's It's so
Yeah.
good. There's so much good work here. It's insane.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
okay. So my first question is, why is it that you don't do brand design without brand strategy? I think
Yeah,
that is
good question.
a very
Yeah.
important point for people who are offering branding services.
Mm,
Totally. It's kind of like building a house without a foundation. Like you don't really have that solid ground to sit on. You don't have things that you can anchor to and point back to. If you're just sort of designing beautiful brand identities without any strategy or positioning. So in the brand positioning phase, we'll have a 2-week discovery phase where we're really understanding the audience, we're understanding the internal team, we're understanding the competitor, the industry at large. We're taking a look at everything that really informs then the brand positioning work that we do. And it's just like I always like to think of brand positioning as like the inside of who you are. If we're saying a brand is a person, a brand position is like the inside of who you are at your heart, and then the outside is like how you look. That's the brand identity. That's how you talk. That's what you wear. That's how you do your hair, whatever it may be. But if you don't have that inside, then what are you? So brand positioning is really creating that internal sort of North Star that we can anchor to for the rest of the brand building.
hmm You almost have to have the strategy. Like those are the building blocks, the essence that you have to define and the criteria you have to use to play with to build the visual identity, right?
Totally. And purely just from like, a client management perspective or like a project management perspective, if you're doing it in house, like if you don't have something to be able to refer back to and point back to, things are going to be constantly shifting because there's not, again, that North Star that you're really like referring to and making sure that's guiding everything else that you're doing. You can make pretty brands that sound cool all day long, but again, if they don't have that sort of internal compass, it's not going to last long term, and it's not going to be consistent. It's
Mhm.
not going to be easy to launch either, or
Mm.
maintain.
Okay,
Right.
I gotta rewind a bit. To you, everyone always has their own different definition for branding, but to you, what is branding?
Um, it is every interaction that a individual has with a company,
Okay.
and it's the feeling that they think of with those interactions. So of course, those interactions can be visual, they can be verbal, but it can be interaction with a customer service rep. It can be, a billboard that they see on a bus. It can be, when they get a package in the mail and they open it up for the first time. And I mean, think of like Apple products. People always like to refer to that word, just sort of this like seamless opening, and everything was thought through so perfectly, and there's no sort of hiccups. All of that is branding. So it's really that feeling
Oh,
that
so
you
it's
think of
not
when you think of a
it's not
company.
just the logo? Oh, I always thought it was
Yeah. It's so funny because I mean, I design logos, obviously, that is part of my
Yeah.
job, but there are like designers that are so clearly logo designers and like logo first brand designers. And
Right.
I actually consider myself the opposite. I much more
Oh,
care
okay.
about the system that the logo lives within. And that's actually maybe why I love Wordmark so much as a logo. Cause I'm like, I
Mm.
actually don't really care about the logo that much. Like, of course that's going to be a
Oh,
recognizable component of the brand, but I care about everything else that's around
yeah.
that, where the logo is living more than the logo itself.
Love it.
And I feel like branding is such a beautiful topic because it, like you said, like it's just this ecosystem of components that make the brand, that make that person. And
Mhm.
it's like when you're talking to your best friend and you're like talking about someone that you admire and you're like, oh my god, like she's so cool, like she has this like mannerisms and whatever. And like what's cool about branding is that you can actually create that for a brand. So,
Totally.
piggybacking backing from that comment, how do you approach branding when let's say a series A,
Mm.
company is coming to you and they're like, listen, we have this product, we just launched or launched a little bit ago, we got some traction, but we really want to revamp our brand. Like what's the process that you go there, and do you offer like a full service, or is it like a step by step thing? Just
Yeah,
to
great
know
question.
the process.
Yeah. So typically projects are about 3 months to 4 months, give or take. So we split it up into three phases. Phase one is that discovery and brand positioning phase. So we take 2 weeks for discovery, and that's where we're doing those audience interviews, stakeholder interviews, competitor audit. Just looking at the industry at large. We're also looking at any materials that the company has already done to date. If they have an existing brand, we'll also audit that and kind of get a sense of like what is working, what is not working, why are you doing this. If they have a product, like if it's a digital product or a physical product, we'll try that out and try to use it and test it if we can. And so that's the first 2 weeks. And then the end of sort of that discovery phase finishes with a brand workshop, which actually I'll walk through later today. I'll walk through sort of tease
Nice.
some of the exercises that we do in that. And that's really getting the whole team together. And that's, just diving in more deeply into areas that we really want to focus on based off of the discovery work that we've done together. So then we'll go into our little cave, we'll do brand positioning, we'll sort of present that. That's like a really first big presentation. And we always like to tell people, like, you're not seeing any visuals for the first 6 weeks, 4 weeks probably. Like, really, this is crafting that foundation. And so we'll present the brand positioning, and that typically includes brand narrative, brand beliefs, brand idea. People have all different words for these things, but this is what we call them. Brand purpose, and oftentimes brand attributes. We'll then also look at like brand activation ideas, which is sort of like teasing how we can actually manifest those things into the world. So we'll present that to the client. Hopefully it's like, this looks great because it's building off of all of the work that we've done thus far together. So it should feel really collaborative. Even though we go into a little cave to create that, we're still coming out presenting something that hopefully feels like we're building off of all the conversations that we've had with them. And sometimes we'll do some tweaks after that. Oftentimes it's good to go, and then we'll move into brand identity phase, which is that second phase, and that's phase 2, and that's 6 weeks of work. So that's like when you typically hire a brand designer, that's kind of what you expect is like, you get three directions presented to you. We're looking at visual and verbal identity here. And then, we're obviously looking at logo color type, messaging, but we're applying it to a bunch of sample touch points in round one. Like we like overkill it in round one because we want to stress test the brand that we're presenting as much as we can. So, we're showing it on what a homepage could look like, on what a deck template could look like, on what swag could look like, on what packaging could look like. So we're never just presenting a logo in isolation, again, because, a logo is not a brand. So at the end of that, that's, the end of phase two is, we'll revise, typically they'll pick one or pick a couple of directions to Frankenstein together, which is okay. I actually like the Frankenstein sometimes. And we'll refine into brand guidelines. So that's the end of phase two. And then phase three is really the go-to-market phase. And that's where it varies so much. Both Danielle and I have a background in working in a digital agency. So we have done a lot of websites over the course of our years, our career, but we're starting to move away more from doing that on our own and partnering instead with other people. Like Grace Walker is someone that we partner with a lot. Nice. So we'll bring her on to do like the website design and development and webflow. Or, we have other webflow or website developer partners that we work with. And then, what's also, if there's packaging design component, we'll do packaging. We'll do templates for like social media or, decks or whatever they have to use internally a lot. And part of our process with the client is like figuring out what their internal, because it's often early stage companies, they don't have like a full in-house design team. So it's like kind of figuring out like, okay, what can we give you? What can we hand off to you that's going to be most helpful for you to be able to use and implement until you hire your first designer? So it's like figuring out what to templatize, figuring out how to systematize things that make sense so that when we hand off the brand, it doesn't break apart, hopefully.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite part in the whole process and what's like the hardest part for you?
Oh yeah, great question. My favorite part is round one design. I mean, that's like, I could do endless concepts like forever. I mean, I love that phase. I saw a tweet like maybe a year ago that's really stuck with me, and I'm going to totally like butcher it now, and I don't remember who tweeted it, but it was like basically there are two types of designers. There's the like, the people that are more like me, where it's like they love the concepting, they come up with a million ideas. It's like that's what's exciting to them. That is not daunting at all. That's just like where their energy comes from. And then there's the other designers that like maybe get a little bit like scared of that and are like, oh, I can't start with a blank page. Like I need to systematize this. Like someone tell me what the brand is. I'm going to systematize it. I'm going to implement it. I'm going to make it better and elevate it by the details. I'm not that designer. I'm in the first camp. So round ones for me are that's that sort of like big moment. So the hardest part for me is actually in the implementation phase, which is equally, if not more important, because I get bored. Like, I mean, that's why I do what I do when I'm not in-house is, I like to move on to the next shiny thing. And so by that phase three, that sort of like go to market phase, I'm starting to be like, okay, like what's the next thing? And of course I'll do it. Of course I'll implement it, and I'll do it well. And I am detail oriented, but I'm definitely
you're ready to move on by then.
The phase two, yeah. And that's why we're out. Honestly, we're looking to partner more with the people that can help us with that phase three piece, because the people that are great at that phase are they make the work 1,000 times better. So it's just finding great partners to work with on things are your weakness.
So it sounds like you're more of a divergent thinker. Like you just love to look at the landscape of ideas and the possibilities. Like we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, and that gets you like super excited.
Totally. And when I present, I mean, when I am thinking about those concepts, I think part of the things that makes me really excited is the constraints. Like I always like to say, I'm not an artist, I'm a designer, because I like having like very clear guardrails to kind of follow and like solve the problem in those guardrails. So like, I guess I don't like the blank slate in the way an artist does, where it's like, oh, it's freeform, there's no constraints at all. Like I do like some constraints, and I do like building off of the brand positioning work that we've done and working in that sort of space.
So good. Yeah, Eric's saying here, he's definitely a phase 3 type of guy.
That's awesome. Eric, we got to partner up.
Yeah. Melissa, any follow-up questions on that?
Um, well, I actually had a follow-up question from the previous
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
My question is, what do you, so they say that a good brand strategy or brand design is foolproof
Mhm.
because the research is behind. So, there's no way that this could be wrong when your own clients are saying this is what they want, right? So what would happen, or has it happened to you that a client comes to you after you have presented the brand visuals and they're like, this is not what we want, and like, what would
Ooh.
you do, or what did you do in that situation? How do you even manage that?
Mm.
Yeah. So the only time really that has ever happened is if we try to like do brand positioning light or like kind of like cut corners in that first phase. Like really that's the only time we ever have those issues. And I think that's for two reasons. Is one, we're not creating that really, really solid foundation. We're kind of trying to like, do a quick sprint of it or something like that. And then it also is not building the trust with the client. Like I think that first phase is like a really important like trust building exercise too.
Mhm.
Mm.
So, but of course, like a client comes back and is like, hey, like we like this direction, but like we want to see another round, or like we don't, we really like this concept, but we hate the logo, or like we really don't like the color palette. Like that happens all the time. I mean, that happens on almost every project. So, um, if that happens, I'll try to understand where they're coming from. I don't. I would say like if I disagree with it, I will be upfront about that, and we'll back up why I disagree with it,
Yeah.
and again point back to the brand positioning or brand strategy that we're working with. If I can refer back to it and it makes sense. Um, if I agree with it, then I'm happy to do revisions. Rarely, I would say, like round one, direction one is like, what we end up with at launch. Like it always evolves. And I think it always ends up better. Again, like I do think that the best brands are built with more people. Like I wouldn't say like design by committee because you want to avoid that, but your client's always going to know the customer and the company better than you are, and so like their feedback is often really, really valid and helpful and actually pushes the brand forward. So I try not to look at like the client as the enemy. It's like a collaborative
That's good.
process, and we're yeah.
Yeah.
I try to really understand where they're coming from and address their feedback. And I'm always happy to like, if their feedback is like really subjective and they're like, we just want to see that, we just want to see it in the color blue. I'm like, cool, I'll show it to you, but like I
Hmm.
disagree and this is why.
Mm.
It doesn't hurt to try it out and then just be like, look, see, like it doesn't work as well. And typically people respond really well to that. As long as you can back it up.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. I want to take a step back a bit more and kind of zoom out and would love for you to explain and share like your work environment. I mean, you've worked many years in San Francisco and now you're in Austin. But like, how much does your environment, do you have like a routine, like getting into the zone to set up your creative process? Walk me through like, yeah, the setup that you had in San Francisco or here, or like how important is the environment that affects your creative process?
That's a great question. So I would say that like my day, there's typically two different types of days that I have. One is the creative day,
Mm,
and that is like the fewer meetings, the better. The like I have my headphones on, my noise canceling headphones on. I have music playing. Like
nice.
I am sitting at my desk with my double monitor, and I am like double monitors, and I'm like in the flow state.
Nice.
That is my favorite kind of day, obviously, as a
Best
creative.
state.
What?
I feel like
What?
that's the best state.
Oh, the best, the best.
What
And
music?
to
What music do you put on? That's the important
oh,
question.
I am so all over the place when it comes to music. My
Okay.
husband always gets mad at me because I am a song listener, not like an album or artist listener. I am like, yeah, I just like turn on Spotify Discover Weekly. Like it's awful. I mean, like I
Oh,
am
okay.
not, yeah. So, but I would say, again, my husband makes fun of me. He calls it like Urban Outfitter music, like basically like basically like, indie electronic
Nice.
pop, that kind of stuff.
Hey, whatever gets you in the flow, right? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But if I'm like really, really high energy, like if I'm like, I need to get, stuff done, I need to move fast, and like I've just got a lot of like production work that I just need to like go through quickly or something, I actually will turn on some hip hop. Like I will turn on some rapper hip
Hey, there you
hop and
go. There you go.
like get like head
Ni-
banging, so it kind of depends on the work that I'm doing too. If I'm reading or writing or anything, I have to do something that doesn't have words, so I'll do a lot of like more like
Okay.
electronic kind of stuff. But
Nice.
uh, but yeah, if I'm designing, I have words, no problem. But yeah, so and then the second day is really like the second type of day that I have is really more like business owner admin stuff. So it's jumping on calls, it's presentations, it's like
Mm,
new business stuff, whether that's like a call or putting together a proposal, it's invoicing, it's like managing any other creatives that we're working with, it's managing the clients. So that day matters less in terms of like where I am and what my environment is like. I mean, I still need to focus, but like I could be sitting on my couch and doing some of that stuff. I could be sitting outside on my new deck. Josh and I were just talking. I built a new deck this weekend. Um, uh, and so yeah, so I think it depends on like the type of day and my
mm,
environment, and like my environment is sort of reflected on like what type of day I'm in.
okay.
Sometimes I'll have months where it's like a lot of the business side, or weeks where it's a lot of the business side. Sometimes weeks are split up like 50-50. It kind of just depends on like where we're at in the project process for the projects that we're on and how busy I am and all that. But yeah,
Okay.
so my environment matters a lot during the creative phase, but maybe less so during the admin
Hmm.
phase, to answer your original question.
Okay.
Um, and I
Cool.
worked in San Francisco. I worked in offices for the most part. I did start freelancing pre 2020, so pre COVID. So I was working remote before everyone was working remote. So I
Yeah,
had like a
yeah.
year, maybe I started freelancing in 2019. So I had a year before of like remote work before
Got it.
everyone else did. I was
Okay.
ahead of the curve a little bit. And I
Nice.
was able to
Nice.
kind of like figure out, okay, remote work is cool. I like it.
Yeah.
Obviously, then COVID hit. That shift things. We moved in the middle of COVID, so I moved from San Francisco to
Mm.
Austin in November
Wow.
2020. Yeah, that was a wild year.
Let me tell you something. That was a good year to move from San Francisco because I feel like that was the year that everything just started kind of like,
Yeah, I know. I know. It makes me so sad. I love San Francisco so much as a city,
I know.
but yeah, I'm glad we weren't there all of COVID. I think I would have not been as happy. So,
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is a question for both of you. Like your productivity levels, you've obviously worked in offices and then now you work from home. Has it been now that you've more control of your time, is your productivity higher, the same? Where's that at? And then Melissa, I'd love to hear like you recently moved to London, so like how's that adjustment? Because you're like setting up your routines all over again. So
Mhm.
maybe I'll start with you, Jess, and then we can go to Melissa.
yeah, I feel much more productive at home. I'm a very like once I start working, I am just in it. Like it's
Nice.
like I don't get easily distracted. I like forget to eat lunch sometimes. Not do not recommend that.
That's
Then
like
at
me
like
too.
4 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I have a headache? That's so weird. So like, but like I think a lot of people's like complaints about working from home are that they get easily distracted or they can't
Yeah.
focus or whatever. I don't have that problem.
Okay.
I've always enjoyed working, and working from home is just sort of a nice way to add balance to my life. Actually, I feel that
Mm,
like I know a lot of people don't think it adds balance to your life, but I feel like I'm more easily able to like run a quick errand and then come back and work or
mm,
like whatever if I need to. It just feels a little bit more like natural ebb and flow of the day.
mm.
Um, so yeah, I think my productivity is probably higher at home, also because I'm like
Oh,
less running to meetings
right.
and, you
Probably more
know,
distractions in the
taking lunch breaks and
office.
bathroom. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Melissa? I'm curious. What do you think?
Yeah, for me, it's weird because I don't like structure, but I do like structure on my day. I feel like I
Mhm.
have to wake up, I have to work out, I have to eat the same breakfast, coffee at the same time, lunch at the same time. So as long as I have that structure, I thrive. But the moment that my structure gets broken,
Mm.
like moving to London, um, everything just gets very jumbled in my head. So the one way for me to get back into structure was copying the exact same routine I had in the US. So
Mm.
that's something, waking up, working out, doing this, doing that. And that has really helped me. And then from working in an office, I'm also definitely somebody that thrives working by herself. Like,
Yeah.
I love putting my headphones in, disconnecting from the world, and just working
Mm.
because I love to talk. So in the office, if somebody came to like chit chat, it was a wrap. So
Yeah.
definitely love working from home. It's so much productive for me.
Totally. Yeah,
Nice.
that's a great. I think I totally agree with you on the structure of a day too. Like I definitely have that structure sort of in place where it's like I kind of roughly start always at the same time, have like a morning routine where I do stuff before I start working, and then like always end around the same time too, which I think really helps because I like I'm definitely not like a night worker. I like to set boundaries of like, okay, like close my
Mm,
computer around
okay.
5 or 6 and like I'm done. Like unless it's like a crazy busy, you know, month,
Yeah,
which
but
happens
see,
this
like
month.
for me in that situation, like I go through phases. So there's phases where I have to close my computer at 5 o'clock. I'm going through a phase right now where I could work until 11 o'clock, 12, 1, 2
Mm.
2 a.m. in the morning. And it's
Yeah.
okay. I thrive also like that because I'm like you in the end of your branding process where you're sick of the project already and you just want to change. So I feel like that little break on structure gives me that as well. So I relate to that.
So
Totally.
does that structure ebb and flow, Jess, for you, depending on what stage you're at in the branding process?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. When Melissa was saying that, totally. Yeah. Like last month I was working nights and weekends and I don't do that often. Like I really try to avoid that, but just the way the projects were staggered and my
Mm.
bandwidth and other vacations I had planned earlier in the year, like I was just swamped. I was busy. And so I definitely had like last month Danielle, poor Danielle, my business partner, she was like hearing me complain about it constantly because I was just like working nights and weekends for like 4 weekends in a row, which is very rare for me. Like I know some people
Wow.
like that and do that, but like that's not normal for me. And now this month is like way chiller. Like
Nice.
I got a 2 hour massage in the middle of the day last week.
Ooh,
Like I'm going, yeah.
nice. There you go.
So it definitely ebbs and flows, for sure, for sure. In terms of busyness and work hours.
Okay. Do you have like a regular workout routine or something physical, or you go for a walk or you get nature to just really like reset you and just yeah, set you up for the day?
Totally. Yeah. So every morning I got a new dog. Well, he's not that new anymore, but he's
Oh,
a year and a half. He's my baby. Every morning my husband and I will walk with him either like in
okay.
the neighborhood or there's a bunch of parks nearby or we'll walk on the lake in Austin.
Nice.
We almost always grab coffee and breakfast tacos. I need to
Oh,
lay
wow.
off the
No,
breakfast tacos a little bit. Like I think last week we had breakfast tacos almost every single morning. So, yeah, the typical morning is going for a walk with our dog, grabbing coffee and breakfast tacos, and like having our time. He's a designer too, and so we'll sometimes talk
Okay.
about work, and so like sort of set up the day,
Mm,
um, or like plan what's for dinner. Just random stuff.
nice.
And then yeah, so typically we'll start work at like 9 or 10, mostly.
Mm.
10
And
if
how
it's a
early
really
do you
good
go
day.
for your morning walk? Like 7, 8?
Well, really early because it's been so hot here. So
Uh-huh.
oh
it's
yeah.
like 90 degrees by like 9 a.m. here
Whew.
sometimes lately. So yeah, so we have to get out really early. So I typically wake up around like 7. And then as soon as I'm up and we'll go out for a walk.
Nice.
And yeah, so out for the next few hours and then we'll slowly start the day. Uh,
Cool.
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, before we get into the next segment for you to share your process, share your screen, I want to ask you, what are some like main sources of inspiration that's really like shaped who you are as a brand designer? Like books, designers you look up to or you've worked with. Yeah, curious to hear.
Yeah, great question. I always love looking at other small brand studios and what work they do. So a couple that like I absolutely love, Little Troop, that's run by Naomi Lacaze and her husband. Their work is just so playful that you can tell that they have fun doing the work. They actually just came out with this like incredible. Naima Lacaze, who's the co-founder, she is also the creative director for Billy, which is like a razor company that's been really popular lately. And they just came out with this like awesome brand activation that's like a board game. And so, anyways, they just have a lot of fun. Like you should type in like Billy board game, Billy
Billy
Razor's board
board
game.
game.
I don't
Okay.
know if they have it on here, but it's Billy Razors maybe.
I'm
Yeah.
This one?
So
literally
they just came out this.
inspecting. Sorry. I'm literally
No,
inspecting their website because I'm in love with their font.
yeah, no, they're like they do such incredible work. I've been a fan of Naomi for a long time. But anyways, they just did like she has really creative brand activation ideas. So they just did this whole board game that's all about like how women are behind and like we'll never catch up in a man's world. So it's almost like Candyland, but like a man's world, and it has all these like weird, punchy like sort of jokes and like things you want to laugh, cry at. But
Are
they
you
did
a
like
comic?
this
Oops.
incredible video for it. Everything like it's just everything is about it is incredible.
So colorful.
So
That's nice.
yeah, and the visuals are incredible. They're awesome. So I really love their work, Little Troop. Another one I look up to a lot is Practice, which is I think it's like practice.inc or something. That's run by Michelle Matar. Um, and then uh, I've kind of followed all these like woman designers who kind of started off freelancing and then now have their own agency
Wow.
or studio. So she does a lot of great work too. In New York, I think she's in New York and maybe LA. I don't think they might split their time, but they do great work and they're interesting. Their model is a little bit different than like a traditional branding studio where they almost act as like an embedded team for like 2 years. Like they have like a really long project sort of engagement minimum. So a little bit different than how Goodside or Little Troop would like structure projects, but really cool. Smith and Diction, my Mike Smith, he's on Twitter a lot. He's another one I love, and he's just really open with his process on branding and like really generous with sharing things openly. Yeah, he's just a nice guy. Seems I
Wow.
only know him through Twitter, but yeah. So I look up to those people. Book wise,
Yeah, if there's
there's like a
one brand book that you would recommend for someone just
So it's
to
like
get
the least like it's not like a sexy book, like, but it's like more like a textbook almost.
Okay.
But the book that really changed how I approach branding and was kind of like I used as like a textbook basically for branding. It's called The Brand Identity by Alina Wheeler.
Yes. The orange one or
Um,
something?
Uh, I have the rainbow one. I know the
Okay.
orange one's the next version. And it's like the like projects in there, like it's not even about the visuals. It's more like she just really goes in depth about like what makes up a brand, like brand process, examples of that in the real world. Again, it's really more like a textbook than like a inspiration eye candy book. I have a lot of those too, but that's the one that like
This is the one I think.
yeah,
Catherine
mine looks
Slade
different.
Brooking?
No. It's
No.
Alina Wheeler. So it's
Okay.
AL. It's the second one there.
Ah, okay, got it.
That one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's actually the version I have too. I know there is a newer one that is orange. Oh, wait, it's the top left one. But yeah, that's the version I have, which is a little older. But I've had that book. I mean, my first job out of school was at like a branding agency called Farm Design in LA, and my boss there like referred to that book constantly. It was like, you have to buy this, and now like ever since it's been my go-to textbook branding. But yeah, again, not visual eye candy, more like branding 101 textbook branding.
Oh, I'm
Nice.
gonna get it. I'm excited. I'm like watching it. I'm about to buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alina Wheeler followed me on Twitter recently, and I was like the author of the book, and I was like, oh my God. I don't even know if she knows. I mean, I have no idea if she knows who I am, but I don't like, I was like, that's amazing. So you shaped
Sweet.
how I brand.
Nice. Eric is gonna check it out. Right on. It's good. We're gonna get
So.
some people learning. Okay, so that wraps it up for this segment for the audio portion. If those who are listening on the podcast want to watch the rest and get the juicy stuff, tune in on the full episode on YouTube, and we're gonna jump right into it now. So, okay, let's switch. And you're sharing screen, Jess.
Great.
This is where it gets super fun. Let's try
Yeah.
to get some tunes here.
So I'm sharing a little bit of behind the scenes. I was like, trying to think of like, oh, what can I share in like 15 minutes? That's a little peek into my process. That's really important to branding. Obviously, for the design gym, I'm going to dive more into the visual side of branding. But for this, I want to talk more about the foundational side of branding. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to walk through how we typically do brand workshops at Goodside and how we facilitate those. So brand workshops are typically happening like 2 weeks into the project. After that sort of discovery phase, we've, again, done the internal interviews, we've done external research, and then we get together on Zoom or Google Meets or whatever my client uses, honestly, and in FigJam, and we create in advance. We create a series of exercises that are custom for the client to tease out further, like things we want to uncover based off of that first discovery phase. 2 weeks. So this is always different. It always like varies a lot in terms of like what exercises we show, and that varies depending on like how visual the client is, the conversations that we've had, the space that they're in, the goals of the project. But wanted to give you a general sense of like how we typically, approach the workshop. So we do it in FigJam. So we always like to start with a recap, just to sort of like set the stage of where we've been. So we will just do like a quick like run through of like, okay, here, like this is where we've been to date. This is all the research that we've done. We've talked to these people in interviews. We've also reviewed materials to date. We've done a landscape audit. This is more of a voiceover normally than the quick one that I'm running through, but to set the stage, we'll do that for the client. We sometimes we'll summarize like frequent words that we heard.
Oh, wow.
And then we'll summarize key emerging themes that were uncovered during those first 2 weeks of the process. And this is like one part recap, but then it's also another part starting to guide the conversation and the brand in the way that we want to. So we're like bringing up key emerging themes that like we really want to lean into from a branding perspective. So it's a little bit of both. So this is an example one that we did for a client that's like a developer tool. But I won't go into the details of their brand and what they said. Then we'll ask them like, hey, anything missing? Add a sticky note. We'll have the team, add any like missing key emerging themes or things that we like definitely didn't cover, just to start to get them involved. So that's not really an exercise, but it's kind of like the first thing that we'll do to set the stage for the workshop. Then we like to give a little bit of homework. So before the sort of workshop, we'll ask the stakeholder team to send a spokesperson who they think would be a great spokesperson for their company. And then we put these all on a board and have them talk about why they choose those people. Ted Lasso comes up a lot, actually, as a spokesperson. But then we'll just have each person like, hey, okay, like tell us why Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
And then we'll start taking notes. And this is like a good little like icebreaker, I would say. It's like everyone has to speak. It gets people, talking, and it also uncovers really interesting themes and even like tonal
Oh.
considerations when we're talking about this. So we'll take notes. That's sort of, maybe a 10, 15 minute sort of like walkthrough based on how many people we have. Then oftentimes we'll do like an audience brainstorm. We also, just as like a note, we like slowly uncover each bucket one at a time, because we like to kind of give like a little reveal and like make sure people are focused in. A lot of this work for the workshop is like, making sure people are feeling engaged and, facilitating the conversation. So we're asking a lot of questions, and we always like to say like, hey, if we don't finish all of these exercises today, that's okay. Like really the main goal is to like have discussions, like call out any alignment or misalignment that we should really address early on in this project. Start to tease out like early hypotheses or early ideas. We'll often show like mood boards and stuff.
It's a lot of research up front.
Yeah, a lot of research up front. So we'll do an exercise around audiences. So sometimes this exercise varies a lot depending on the company. Oftentimes, a lot of our clients will have multiple audiences. So like they'll have, a B2B client, and then they'll have a consumer client, or they'll have, different sort of like audience personas or types of people that they really want to appeal to. Sometimes they'll have one audience that they're addressing and speaking with currently, and then they want to expand to a future audience, which was the case for this in particular company. So we'll be like, hey, create a Post-it note, grab a Post-it note, write down, describe a person that would use or be a part of your company. Who's your customer? And so we'll give them like 5-10 minutes, just be like, put as many as you can for your current audience. So a lot of these people said like freelance developer who's building a personal portfolio. So developers looking to grow an audience, bloggers. And then we start to sort of like group them into themes, into buckets. And then for this one, we did future. Okay, that's who you're currently appealing to. Who do you want to appeal to in the future? And so in this case, it was like e-commerce startups, bigger businesses, content editors. So, and we'll also, like, as we're, again, having this conversation, it's not just about putting Post-it notes on the board. It's about talking through those Post-it notes and being like, okay, well, like, what touch points do they care about? Like, how are we going to reach them? Like, what is the highest priority brand piece that we need to focus on for them? Do we need to tonally shift between these two audiences? Do we need to have like different considerations for like visuals, or for like ease of implementation for the touch points that we're creating for them? So these are all like things that we start to uncover in these exercises. Again, it's like less about like completing the exercise, and it's more about uncovering as much information as we can. Then we'll do I love this exercise. Sometimes we'll put this one first. We call it binaries. And this actually, we've borrowed, I should say, all of these exercises from, other agencies and how we've sort of like experimented and come up with different exercises over the course of like the 10 years that we've been doing this. But this exercise is from an agency that we partnered with a couple years ago called Upstatement, who's a great digital agency in Boston.
Okay.
And so they did this exercise. We came on as their sort of like brand team, Danielle and I did. And they had this exercise that they had done, and we like love it now, and we do it at almost every project. But it's basically, you have like a set of statements that are maybe a little bit divisive based on the conversations that we've had in the discovery phase and like individual interviews. And then we'll make the team react, each person on the team react with either a green or a red star. So there's no orange star. There's no like, I kind of agree with this.
Binary,
it's like,
right,
you need to, yeah, the binary, exactly. So some of them will be easy, but some, like, we'll throw maybe a softball in at the start or something. But some are a little bit more controversial. Like, it's okay if we alienate some people as long as our brand resonates with our core developer market. If our audience only remembers one thing about us, it should be X, so those are all things. And this is like a really good way of teasing out maybe like disagreements or misalignment among the team internally, and like addressing it before we even get into like the brand creation. side, because that's oftentimes where the hiccups come on down the line. So that's another one.
This is so good. Like, you don't see this in depth as much. So thank you for sharing.
No, of course. I've actually been wanting to do like a Twitter thread about these exercises. So
Okay.
I might do that and just share it out too, because I think it's helpful. And like, again, these are all like pulled from, books we've read or other agencies and how they do it, or just experimenting over the years. So it's like, it's free for everyone. Oftentimes, this really, really, really depends on the way that we're like the sort of like visual vocabulary of the team or the brand vocabulary of the team that we're working with. But oftentimes we will show early mood boards and early narrative positioning directions and have them sort of just respond to them at a high level. So like in this case for this brand workshop we did, so Danielle wrote out a narrative that really like sets the stage, and then we paired it with a mood board and then had them react to each of these things. And in this phase, and we did probably 6, and it's just like throwing out early ideas because we want it to
so
be
nice.
collaborative. We want to tease out like any subjectivity early on. We also want to like educate about how like a narrative would affect the visuals. So there's like a lot of like reasons for doing this outside of just like, I like the color orange, let's make our brand that color. Like it's not really the intent of the mood boards. It's more like education / collaboration. So yeah, for this one we showed like 5 or 6. Sometimes we'll show 1, sometimes we'll show 3. It's really meant to like, again, just like start to have early conversations about the visuals and the positioning and throw out things and see what sticks and kind of like see what's resonating, what scares people. So we start to like narrow in before we actually go into like design and positioning work and verbal identity. And then
would you say this is kind of like the divergent option, and then you get their reaction, and then from there you can narrow down on a certain direction?
So I still no. So I'll still like I say like, hey, the goal is not to like pick one. It's to have a conversation around it. To tease out like anything we should definitely like explore further versus not. Mood boards I know are like people have lots of thoughts on mood boards. I have a lot of thoughts on mood boards. But
oversimplified, right?
I'll save that for another day. Yeah. But like, so the goal isn't really to like pick one direction to like then just explore within that direction. It's more to like, again, have conversations, educate about the visuals and the verbal identity and how positioning is going to affect that. It is teasing out subjectivity, but then it's also like addressing that subjectivity like up front and being like, oh, that's interesting. Like, tell me more about why you hate the color purple. Oh, okay. Like, but like, maybe our audience will like the color purple. Like, what do you think if we use color? Like just those kind of things. So this is like very divergent and like high level. Round one design presentation is still divergent, but more like refined. It's honing in on the things that we were liking and gravitating towards in the workshop. So we'll still show 3 directions or 2 or 4 depending. But it's like based more, it's like more educated directions and more like research directions. So there shouldn't be like too many surprises. And then sometimes we'll give homework at the very end, which is like the manifesto and the narrowing in exercise is what we call them. So we'll have each person finish these statements. So we believe, we love, we hate, we will always, we will never, we will be remembered for. And that, sometimes we'll have that in person, but oftentimes it's homework because we run out of time. And then we have a narrowing in exercise, which is describe your company in 25 words or less, in 10 words or less, and in 3 words or less. And so all of this that we do in the brand workshop and the discovery page then leads into brand positioning and visual verbal identity.
So right here, the words, 25 word, is it 25, 10, and
25, 10, 3.
So that out of the 25, then do you narrow it down to 10 and then you shave that off, that 10 to 3? Is that?
It doesn't have to be the same words. Okay. We'll just say like, and like I'll even say like we're very flexible at this stage. It's kind of interesting to see how different people approach this exercise, because some people will write like a 25-word sentence or two, and
Mm-hmm.
some will just list out adjectives like
Okay. I see.
rebellious, cutting edge, and then some will be like, we are a developer company and da 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 da, so, and we like that divergent thinking in this stage.
Yeah.
I think, again, like the workshop is sort of the phase to like be divergent, hear everyone's voices, hear everyone's ideas, and then we'll come back with strong recommendations.
Okay.
Love that. Wow.
So good.
Yeah.
And then
That was great. Great presentation.
Yeah, thanks. It's such a fun, I mean, we always like, it's such a fun part of the brand projects that we do. We call it like brand therapy.
Right.
Because it really does become like really emotional for people oftentimes. And it's just really like informative for us too. And relationship building. It's all good. All good.
Yeah. That is awesome. Questions. We only have a few minutes left, so people in the audience, ask all your branding questions, but I feel like, Jess, you like covered all of them. That was so thorough and that was so great. Melissa, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
you said, Josh, it's very hard, or you really don't see the branding really process from other companies. So it's very interesting to see how people do it, because in my situation, for example, we offer branding, but it's more like scientific. Because I learned from people that were like that. You know what I mean? So seeing it
Yeah.
from your point of view, it just feels so fresh and fun. Like it's inspiring me to actually like maybe change it up a little bit and make it more like a therapy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you do like a lot of like data, like research? Is that like consumer
Yeah,
research and
exactly.
stuff?
Like,
Yeah.
it's
Cool.
just all like statistics, and then the brand visual part does become funner, but that
Yeah.
previous part for me, it's usually tedious, which is why I collaborate with market research and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I don't enjoy it, but seeing it from this point of view, it just makes it seem so fun.
It is fun. It is fun. Yeah. And we've like, I think with bigger companies, oftentimes like we'll do like, like we'll partner with even like a market research agency or something that's doing the like, consumer reports and all of that. Like it kind of depends at the stage of the company and like how clear they are with their audiences. So I think there's like room for that too. I don't think it's like necessarily an either or. I think it's like there can be the right
Right,
place for both.
right. Yeah. We have
Yeah, we got some
questions.
questions. Jess, Melissa, do you have a few minutes after to like go over time to answer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to have some time to have the audience have their questions answered. So Dale's saying, Jess, have you ever had a client push back on all the great initial work you do? As in, just show us a few things.
So is the question like they don't want the process or they don't like the work that I showed?
Yeah, good question. Maybe you can clarify a bit, Dale. We'll wait on that.
I have had
Gabriel.
people push back on like process, but we can wait when he clarifies.
Gotcha.
Don't value the process.
Gabriel says, how to start talking about branding strategy with a client that hasn't done it before? How do you sell on the therapy?
We just don't not offer it. So like
okay.
it is just like if you want to hire us for branding, like that is just part of our process. That means that we will say no to a lot of potential clients. Like we turn down clients that want to do it quick, that need a launch in 3 weeks, that don't care about positioning or brand strategy. And we turn down a lot of people. Not everyone's the right fit for that. And that's okay. Like we don't want to force someone to go through a process that like doesn't care about it, or doesn't think it's valuable. We just have tried to do it in the past with a more condensed phase and it never goes well. And so we'll explain that. And I would say that it's like a lot of education into why that we believe it's the right way to brand. But typically people are coming to us because they like our work. They've seen it be successful, and it, education is less needed these days, luckily. But we definitely still turn people down.
I think Gabriel's asking for his own experience, I guess, like selling branding.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I would say educate education is the biggest thing. Like, why do you think that it's going to be valuable? I think talking about how you're building that foundation is really important. And like, you need time as the brand creator to be able to understand the audience, understand who you're working with, understand the industry at large, because you're going to make a more unique and ownable and hopefully long lasting brand with that. So I think it's like educating them and just, honestly, when I first started freelancing, I did not charge for that work. I just did it anyways. And then eventually I was like, no, we're charging a lot of money for that work.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but I used to just throw it into like my brand identity visual. This is before Danielle and I joined forces. So yeah, you might have to throw it in a couple times for free.
Yeah.
Or like yeah.
And that's a good way to filter out like the good clients from the ones who will just take advantage of you, right? Or just want to get a quick job out.
Totally. Like, we're not the right fit for those people that like don't care about building the foundation or want to do it fast. Like, I know design sprints are a whole conversation right now. I think there's a place for them. Like, I think they're great and they're needed in the industry. And like, I think it's great if people want to offer them and they feel successful and like fulfilled doing that. We just don't. So we don't offer it.
I feel like sprints are more for like product companies more so than building a brand. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of brand sprints are happening these days, which is interesting. I mean, like, there's this one designer who I follow on Twitter who I really admire. Like, he now like only offers brand sprints, or almost only. And historically he used to work more like, how Danielle and I work. So and I'll be interested to sort of like follow along with that journey for him. He's finding it really fulfilling right now. So we'll see.
Okay, cool. Melissa, you want to take this question?
Eric's?
Yeah.
A lot of the workflow you walk through seems very team-based, which is great. But how do you handle setting the tone of that teamwork and establishing who is the final decision maker?
Oh, I love this question. So before even the project starts, we do a project starter kit. And that is typically in like a Google Doc or a Notion doc or like whatever the client uses. And it basically is a document for the client team to fill out ahead of the project kickoff call. In that document, we ask, who is the core team? How do you see decision-making process, or who's like the final decision maker? I forget exactly how we word it, but it's like, how do you see decision-making going during this project, I think is how we word it. And typically with that question, people will lay out like, I'm the primary like stakeholder and I'm also the primary point of contact, or like, I'm the primary point of contact and the CEO is the final decision maker, or like whatever. If there are like, actually, we just had a client recently be like, we have 8 decision makers. I pushed back and I said, no, you do not. You need, it's not going to be like a efficient use of time. If you have like, we're not going to be able to like design by committee. That way, like, it's not going to be an efficient brand building process. We recommend having 5 like core team members, 1 decision maker per phase. So like if the CEO is really passionate about like brand positioning or strategy, they own the final decision on phase 1. But maybe there's like a VP of design or VP of marketing that really cares about like design or the implementation phase. Like, okay, they own the decision-making process for those phases. So to answer Eric's question is like, we will educate and push back and sort of like say like why it's important to have really strict roles when it comes to decision makers. There has to be like 1 or 2 max per phase. We've just found that's more successful. I worked at a company in the past that was like a very like flat hierarchy, and nothing got done because everyone and no one was the final decision maker. So it's tough. You want it to feel collaborative. And I think that's why we do the like upfront sort of like collaborative discovery phase, because everyone's voices are then heard. And we take all of that into consideration, but ultimately someone needs to make the final call. So
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so good to manage and establish that like right from the get-go.
yeah, it's like a very important education piece, part of the process.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I think that is time. I know Gabriel has another question, but I think you kind of touched on it. What would be like 5 mandatory steps that you would do for brand strategy? Do you think you can answer that in like 10 seconds or something? Like boom, 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 boom. I know
Yeah,
you had a
five.
three-phase process, but
Yeah, so for brand strategy specifically, I would say individual internal like team interviews, like one-on-one interviews with each core stakeholder. um, Another thing to call out is like who is a should be informed versus who is a decision maker. That's something else that can maybe help with the decision making process, or like the other question. So yeah, interviews, audience interviews, competitor audit,
mm,
brand workshop, and then I guess like the initial like questionnaire project starter quit. That's not really brand strategy, but that's part of the
mm,
process. So those were the things I would say for those steps exercises.
nice. Wow, so good. We covered a lot on this stream. Thank you so much, Jess. For those who want more, we have the Design Gym again kicking off next week. Um, and let me just quickly share. There's my little plug here. Okay, so we have 30 spots. There's 6 sessions. First is Fawn's visual design on a Monday, and then we have Joey Banks on the Wednesday doing design systems. We have Benton Woodring on Friday, and then the following week we got Jess kicking us off on Tuesday, and she's going to be helping us create a brand identity, which is like a lot packed into 1 hour. It's going to be really good. And session 5 on Wednesday. The next day is Devin Fountain, Webflow Development, and then Nicolo Miranda on Friday, Webflow and AI. He is. We're gonna have him on in 2 days on Thursday on the stream to talk about that. So, any final thoughts, Jess, Melissa? Thank you so much for today.
Thank you. This was so fun. Thank you for having me. And thanks everyone for joining in.
Awesome, Melissa.
Yeah, great. Thank you for inviting me. I admire you so much, Jess. So yeah, I'll see you on Twitter and follow along on
Oh,
your work.
yes, likewise, likewise. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any other follow-up questions, all our Twitter handles are all there. So just make sure to reach out. Thanks for your time. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Bye.